Hi, Tony Selzo here. Welcome to the Experience Economy. I got a great guest, man, one of my favorite people to talk about innovation and where the puck is going. I got Michael Fulton, who is the Vice President of Strategy over at Expedient, one of the largest VARs or MSPs in the well, actually in the country, right? I mean,
In the country, yep.
you're one of the big ones. And so you are literally, your job is to oversimplify. I hate to throw to do that, but it's really to help these larger businesses apply technology, people, and process to create the experience of the future. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we are largely playing that role as an infrastructure as a service provider.
Mm-hmm.
So what I like to say, because as you know, I also teach digital transformation at Ohio State. So I like to be clear with our customers when we're driving that IT modernization with our cloud products,
Mm-hmm.
we're not delivering the digital transformation. We're not driving the business outcomes. We're providing the IT modernization that's going to enable you to do your digital transformation that you desire. So, cloud is really an enabler
Mm-hmm.
of those digital transformations that are truly transforming the customer experience.
Yeah, I want to tag in on that because it's one of the things that we always try to teach our clients. If you're going to deliver the experience of the future, right? If you're going to create this optimal experience that you imagine through digital transformation or design thinking or whatever the buzzword of, you've got to get to a single source of truth about the customer. All those touch points have to be interacting to deliver whatever experience we want to get to. And that's part of what you're there. The underlying backbone of that is the infrastructure. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think to your point, truly having that single source of truth, truly understanding and sharing the customer insights that you're collecting and gathering.
Mm-hmm.
I would go maybe a step beyond what you said. Yes, I absolutely want a single source of my customer record, my customer master data, and kind of that system of record of the truth about the customer. But I also want a single source of shared customer insights.
Yep.
I want to take what I'm learning in every single interaction that I have with my customers,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to collect that into a single repository where I can synthesize it, analyze it, leverage it across all the other interactions I might have with that customer across the company. So I
Yeah.
think shared customer insights are absolutely critical.
Well, and give us an example of what an insight would be. I know when I'm thinking of that, it could be like it's the breakthroughs that we can see about customer behavior that we didn't see before, so we can respond to that in a more creative way, or to apply and do new product value. Is that the way you guys think of it?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to describe it. I'll give you an example of something we learned. So, obviously, you and I met back when I was running technology innovation over at Nationwide,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things that we were exploring over at Nationwide, where Nationwide was one of the not was is one of
Mm-hmm.
the largest insurance providers here in the U.S.
Yeah.
Obviously, home and auto insurance, but a number of other insurances that they provide. And so we were exploring ways to innovate in the home insurance space, right?
Great. Yep.
And one of the ideas that we had was that we wanted to expand from home ownership, home insurance, into home warranties.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Fairly natural, fairly similar. The difference, home insurance is really protecting the whole of your home. Home warranties are really protecting the appliances, the furnace, the water heater, kind of the big ticket items inside the home, but not the home itself, right?
Sure.
As a general rule.
Yep.
So we were doing an innovation, try to explore what customers thought of a company like Nationwide offering home warranty.
Mm-hmm.
And the insight that we got from that was that customers actually had a really bad taste in their mouth about home warranties.
Mm-hmm.
The industry had some problems historically with perception.
Yep.
There's some players that weren't necessarily above board
Yep.
at all times. There was a perception from customers that home warranties were
And a
typically
lot of that
not.
came from the incentives for the warranty, right? I mean, they were highly commissioned. value props that you had, people who probably didn't really understand what the warranty was there about. They were more concerned with $100 that they were going to get on a pop to get their paycheck padded, and not the real value of what the warranty could deliver. Is that fair?
100%. And so when we collected that insight, what we needed to do was not only pivot our innovation to explore other ways that we could innovate inside the homeowner space, but
Mm-hmm.
we also needed to take that learning and share it with all of our innovation teams, share
Mm-hmm.
it with other parts of the organization that were interacting with customers so that
Mm-hmm.
we better understood who our customer was, what they were interested in, where they wanted to go.
Yeah, Michael, I think this is one of the most important things we try to get our clients to understand. And I'm going to kind of re-say what you said in the breakthrough in a slightly different way. There's a very famous venture capitalist that is happens to be on the same street with all the other VC down. I think it's Red Row or something like that in
Mhm.
Silicon Valley, and he has this hypothesis that every business that they've ever been pitched will be a business someday. It will be a concept someday. And it's so crazy that, you can think about the deal flow that they've seen, 3,000
Uh-huh.
potential pitches a year, right, come through his office. And he says it's all about product market fit. It's all about having the right problem and the right at the right time for the right market, right? It's all about
Absolutely.
matching your go-to-market strategy with your product. And we talk about that a lot with our clients, because that agile testing, it could be just changing messaging alone, maybe not even calling it warranties, calling it something different, right? Creating a new product category, knowing that warranty has a bad image in the consumer's mind, and we move that word space into a new word that we might be able to sell a new product. And I think that's where a lot of people, they get so focused on product development, but they don't really think about go to market or matching the jobs that need to be done at that point in time for the target market that's there. And do you guys see that too?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, I think that was just having inside of Expedient a conversation earlier today about how we're thinking about our go-to-market strategies, how we're evolving those go-to-market strategies, and we were actually even talking about, well, what are the elements of a go-to-market strategy, and how should we be really thinking about this,
Mm-hmm.
and what is different between your go-to-market strategy and your product strategy. And it kind of reminds me, you're probably very familiar with it, but it reminds me of the concept of the 10 types of innovation. And so many times I would say when we think about innovation, we think about product innovation,
Right.
we think about creating that next new thing,
Right.
but there are so many other ways that we can drive innovation, whether that's business model innovation, whether that's customer experience innovation.
Right.
It might be process innovation for internal operating processes.
Right.
It might be innovation on our brand or our go to market messaging. It might be,
Could be
um,
pricing.
I'm sorry, what?
Could be pricing.
Pricing innovation,
There's a
100%.
whole book called Costivation, right? About, I mean, Google Apps, probably a slightly inferior product to Microsoft Suite, right?
Yep,
But the price point is dynamically cheaper, right? It's a tenth of the cost. And so
absolutely.
when you're making that decision to start a business, right? Do I need to spend, $6 a head, $9 a head, or 39, or whatever the math is, right? And that's really, I see that happen a lot. It's like moving, they exposed a market that probably wouldn't have used a platform in the cloud like that before, because they would have waited till they got big enough for Microsoft, right? And
Right.
now they've created a whole target market by serving a different value.
Yeah, and I think to your point, I look at my space, right,
Mm-hmm.
and the advent of cloud computing, and what cloud computing has really done historically to enable and really turbocharge innovation. What
Mm-hmm.
did it do? Cloud computing took what was largely for most organizations, their IT infrastructure, all the computers, the servers, and whatnot, a large upfront capital investment,
Hmm.
and it turned it into an operating expense that they could charge to a credit card,
Right.
right? And now they had unlimited capacity to scale as their innovation scaled in a market, but they didn't need to pre-buy,
Yeah.
right? So it enabled organizations to really try so many cool new different things,
Right.
and quite frankly has over the last 15 years led to a tremendous amount of startups and innovation throughout every single industry, which is really pretty cool.
100% agree. Like I remember when I first got into tech, you were probably looking at 25 to $30,000 just to do a website, to build a brand, to go through, another 5 to 6 grand in legal and accounting just to stand it up, right? To get all those things.
Absolutely.
I think we're at 100. Our average stand up right now. Even a lot of times, even including MVP software development, we're less than 50 to 60 grand to get. That's with a product, right? That's with an actual execution, let alone the leverage, the democratization of infrastructure, which I think that's Peter Diamandis. I can't take credit for that, right? The
Right.
democratization of that infrastructure being able to be used by those startup guys, or the guys that are out there trying to push the envelope for innovation. It's dynamically different than it was just 2 decades ago.
Absolutely. And it's not just the startups, it's the small businesses as well, right? I was talking to a friend of mine just last week who does a lot of application development, and
Mm-hmm.
he was building websites for a small business. They
Mm-hmm.
wanted a website, didn't have one for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it cost a little bit of money to actually build the website, his
Mm-hmm.
time and his effort, but the infrastructure to run the website, when he was done, that infrastructure bill is less than $1 a month.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
can you imagine a small business trying to do that 5, 10 years ago and having to buy a server and whatnot? The kind of server you would need five,
Mm-hmm.
$10,000 at a minimum,
Yeah.
for the absolute cheapest you could do to pull that off. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it just changes the game when we think about what's possible standing on top of the shoulders of cloud computing, for example.
Right. Yeah, as we look to the future, as we start to think how these experiences can be delivered, how are the people that are coming in market changing what they expect from us as service providers, from us? We were talking about restaurants earlier. How is that changing what restaurants deliver? What I'm working with a pool company. I think you and I were talking about this. Where that we have IoT sensors that we're installing in the pools to tell us what chemical to bring out to do a service call, where the customer can approve it on their cell phone, right? Just seamless, pun intended, right? Seamless delivery of value, and dynamically more expensive than what you could buy those chemicals on Amazon for, but cheaper, but a value cost exchange for convenience. How do you see that changing? How as these new generations get into market, right? Are they more and more expecting that? In fact, just demanding that they get that 2 clicks and I get what I want type of mentality?
I would say it's yes, they are. It's been going on for a number of years. We used to call it the consumerization of IT,
Mm-hmm.
when every single interface was expected to be as good as the Apple interface or the Amazon interface,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whether it was a product that you were offering to customers, or whether it was even an IT service that you were offering inside your own company. And I think the bar is being raised
Mm-hmm.
by companies that are showing and proving just how easy it is. I think the other thing that we've got going on is that with some of the younger generations, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
what we're starting to see is people that care more about experiences than they care about things,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't know whether you've experienced this or not. I know for me, I've got a 21-year-old today officially.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to see what he's
Congrats.
doing at college today.
Yeah.
And then I've got two 19-year-olds.
Okay.
And over the last couple of years, when I think about Christmas presents, we've really kind of made this shift to give them experience gifts
Mm-hmm.
rather than things for
Yeah.
Christmas.
Yep.
and they absolutely love it.
Yep.
They enjoy the experience now. It's more about the experience and the memories. And so I think that this combination of the bar being raised and
Hmm.
then kind of a shift in mindset that experience matters.
Yeah.
The combination of those two things is really coming together to see exactly what you described. And people are willing to pay more
Hmm.
for the things that matter to them. They're willing to pay more for a better experience. They're willing to pay more for an output that is socially conscious,
Hmm.
right? We see it in the ESG space where people are now demonstrating and proving that they're willing to pay more for a solution that might be carbon neutral, for example,
Yeah.
right? So, or pay more for something that's recycled
Yeah.
cardboard rather than brand new cardboard.
There,
So,
well, and I think there. So there are other values. We're a jobs to be done house, right? We're really
mhm,
into that jobs to be done innovation, and there's a lot of psychological jobs getting done, right? With that appeal to my interest to be green, right? To feel like I'm voting with my dollars for a better Earth, right? And therefore I'm spending that more money, and I think that's the real point that I try to get our small, we're a mid-market company. That's who we really focus on, 25 to half a billion dollars in revenue. And what we're trying to get our clients to understand is you're either going to pay for innovation now and you're going to create a strategy to innovate for your customers, or you're going to pay an intermediary to rent your capital to do that later. We started talking about that with DoorDash, right?
mhm,
DoorDash understands the customer experience so well. They understand that I want to be able to two thumb clicks repeat my order from Wendy's, right? Me and my partner were talking about his 18-year-old, and he was so frustrated with him because he was ordering Wendy's. Like you could hit a 3 wood from Wendy's to his house, right? I mean, it's
right,
literally over a mile and a half. And he would order Wendy's, pay the premium, right? The service fee, $15 for a $7 meal, right?
yep,
Because he wanted delivered and he didn't want to leave his game, right? And the food can't taste as good, right?
right,
There's a $7 convenience fee, and I say that now as I think about it. I don't go grocery shopping anymore. I'm doing Instacart. I don't buy alcohol at the liquor store anymore. I do Grizzly, right? I don't go to the dry cleaner anymore. I wouldn't even know how to get my stuff in. Like as I say that, right? It's like I make fun of it, yet I am living that. And I think that's a lot of the case for all of us. We think it's stupid over here because it's not what our jobs to be done. But over here, we're doing the same thing, right? Do you find yourself kind of in that?
yeah, I do as well. I mean, to your point, my wife and I have just recently started click listing at Kroger, right? So rather than her giving me a grocery list and me stopping and doing all the grocery shopping on my way home, or her going in the middle of her day to the grocery, now she simply click lists it, and I swing by Kroger and text a number, and they put it in my car, and I go home, and it
Yeah.
takes me 5 minutes to get what used to take 45 done,
Right.
and find that incredibly convenient and easy. So, yeah, we're doing the exact same thing on a bunch of different fronts.
Yep.
But to your point, we still make different choices, right?
Mhm.
I'm not a DoorDasher
Yeah.
because, to your point, for me, the most important thing about my restaurant experience is the quality of the food.
Mhm.
It's not the convenience, it's the quality.
Right.
And so for me, the value equation isn't there for DoorDash because, as we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
I believe that the quality of the food when I DoorDash it for most meals is 20 to 30% worse than if I was to go to a restaurant and eat it, or get it and drive through and take it home, or
Mhm.
whatnot.
Yep.
I have a much worse experience because of what matters to me. And I think, to your point, if
Mhm.
we think about this conversation, it's really about understanding the customer and what matters most to them. And to your point, it's what are their value drivers and
Yep.
what are their jobs to be done. I
Yep.
think putting those two things at the center is critical when you're thinking about transforming a customer experience. And so, Tony, I'm going to ask you and put you on the spot a
Mhm.
little bit. When you work with a customer,
Mhm.
how do you work with them to help figure out what the value drivers are for a particular innovation space that you're looking at, or figure out what the jobs to be done are. Can you tell us a little bit about how you would work with somebody to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate you teeing it up. It's really understanding and getting crystal clear on what the ideal client is. And what are the jobs that they have to get done around our value prop, right? And thinking about that globally, we literally draw a circle around that person. We've got at least 5 demographic and psychographic details we want to have in that space. We 99% of the time we even name them, right? We want to give it a story because we want to be able to relate to that person. And
Mm-hmm.
then what we do is we start to ask the questions are like, what are those jobs that they got to do, to in their day to day, and that are not necessarily in our core competency, but around our core competency, right?
Right.
And then ask ourselves, how do we test this with an MVP? Talk to them with some primary information. Where we're doing 100 interviews with this target market. We're doing something right now in the restaurant business, and the founding team didn't believe that the server would look at data on a guest, right, on whether or not the guest was important in that space, right? And we literally drove around Indianapolis, up and down 82nd Street and down 96th Street, and talked to 100 servers, 100 bartenders, right? And
Mm-hmm.
showed them the UI and the UX and walked them through the experience. Is this something you would use? Would it be valuable to you? Do you think it would increase your tips? And just hearing that overall positive response and some of the feedback that we got made what I would call even positive deviation from the original concept that we had to make that go. And I don't think a lot of people do what I call MVTs, minimum viable testing, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
MVP is so popular, right? It's so, hey, we got to get a product out there, test, fail fast. Fail fast is, and cheaply sounds good, but there's a lot of validation you can get from your customer base to know that you're actually solving a problem that they have and a job that they do. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. And I think you hit on a couple of things that I think are really, really important. I want to emphasize. The
Mm-hmm.
first is really the importance of writing it down.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You talked about putting the customer in the center and then writing down the jobs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I can tell you in my experience, right, as I having been a part of innovation work for much of the last 10 plus years, there's some of the stuff that I go through inherently when I look at a situation. I rattle this stuff off in my head and I don't necessarily think about it.
Sure.
But if I don't write it down,
Yep.
then what the way I see the world is different than the way everybody else in the room sees the world.
Yeah.
And what writing it down does is it helps us get everybody on the same page.
Yep.
So that's the first thing I wanted to highlight. The second thing that you highlighted that's really critically important is the importance of testing, right? Because I am not the customer of my products,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I may be a customer, but a lot of times I'm not even my target market, right?
Well,
What
not
matters to me is not going to be what matters to the people I'm trying to serve. And I have to ask them.
and testing with an outcome in mind. Like, what is the outcome that this target market uses to judge whether this job was done successfully, right? Like, if there's a ton of sites out there that you can use to get a form built, right, for
Mm-hmm.
starting your own business, right, or
Yep.
creating an LLC. Like, if I spend $100 for that, and I've eliminated $2,000 of legal fees, right, to get that LLC started, and it's
Mm-hmm.
85% good. It's not great,
Right.
right? It's not probably what I need to fully do from a standpoint long term. I probably got to get a lawyer to look at it. Once we got money moving through it, we got to review it. But $100 in exchange for something 85% is good versus $2,000 is great for my outcome, right? And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
part of what that next step is like understanding how's that target market really going to judge the outcome versus the cost.
Yeah, I think this is so critically important, and in fact, it's one of the things I I try to harp on maybe a little bit too much. And
Hmm.
when I teach both undergrad and exec ed at Ohio State. And in
Hmm.
both of those classes, when talking about digital, what I talk about is how um, in the technology space,
Hmm.
what we have done in this big shift to digital transformation is we've gone from what was historically more of a manufacturing mindset
Hmm.
where we would identify what we were going to build and then we
Hmm.
would use a manufacturing process to
Yep.
actually build a system and come out the other side with the end result.
Hmm.
We've shifted from a manufacturing process to an R&D process,
Yep.
right? We are now scientists following a scientific method. We're not just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
We are creating a hypothesis on something we believe to be true, and we are
Yep.
running experiments. These tests that you're talking about are experiments. We're
Hmm.
going to put down a hypothesis, we're going to run an experiment, we're going to capture the learnings, and we're going to find out whether that experiment is it's either validated or it's rejected.
Yeah,
And
you'll love this. We call those experiments LOFAs, leap of faith assumptions, right?
right,
You're sticking a hypothesis out there, and you're testing for it. But the and conversation, not the but conversation. You're running that experiment as cost effectively as possible because you intentionally got into what the target market's jobs are to do. So you're
correct.
you're getting validation from that point where I've sat in. I know you've sat in a bunch of pitches too. I've seen a lot of pitches where there's no market validation of any problem or pain or jobs to be done on from the hypothesis that's made. Right?
Yeah.
That's literally a roulette wheel. Right? You're hoping that you land on green.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have the opportunity to walk through what you said, a process that is scientific, not art. That's what we really try to get our clients to understand. It is not, most of what has been viewed over the last 100 years of innovation, people would call more art. Somebody had really good instinct. They were very empathetic, and they just bet hard. Right? You don't hear about the 99 other guys that failed on that bet. Right?
Right.
Because
Right.
they don't make it to $1 billion plays. And so there's much easier. There's much more process driven way to get to that end, and I think that's what you teach, and that's what we kind of try to get our clients to emphasize too.
100% agree. 100% agree.
But hey, one last question: what is the most important thing that if you're going to start to think about where you want to go, where is the puck going, what do you try to get your clients to start to expose their brain to? So is it design thinking, is it an innovation process, is it jobs to be done, what is in on your bookshelf that you're starting to get them to start to think about?
Quite frankly, even more so than a book, and there are lots of books that I could recommend and whatnot. If you're just getting started, go talk to your customers.
Yeah.
Go sit down and have a conversation with them.
Hmm.
Find out what they like, find out what they don't like, and just listen. That's the number one thing you can do is listen to
Hmm.
your customers and how they're, if you have a product, how they're experiencing your product. And if you don't have a product, if you're just starting your startup journey, so to speak,
Hmm.
talk to people that you think might someday be your customers
I
and learn
mean,
from
we
them.
call it a customer advisory board, right? It's like get it, like every time there's an old saying in startup, I can ask for advice and you probably give me a check, but if I ask for a check, you're going to give me advice, right?
Yeah,
So you
yeah,
always start with those stakeholders that potentially could be your future customer or even your future investors, because if they would buy it, if they think it's a good idea, a good enough idea that they would vote with their dollars, they probably think it's good enough to vote with their investment. And we see that all the time. I think it's so fundamental to just start there. A lot of people don't really understand that it can be that simple.
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks for being on the show, man.
As always, it's been a pleasure.
All right.